wars, it's just not right for people to have wars, because, people are risking their lives for other people. Because, say, like, you go into the army, you're fighting for your country, you're not fighting for yourself. And peace is a good thing to have, because you're not fighting, and you're sharing things with each other, and you can talk things out and stuff.
If you could make one change in our city to make it a more peaceful and better place, what would it be?
Well, I would do maybe what you're doing. Just begin to have people talk about it. Perhaps at the library, there could be some books that people could read on peace education and about people from different parts of the world. Maybe if we knew about the people all over the world, we wouldn't hate them. We might even want to know more about them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening and welcome to Dead Air Live. Tonight our show is the second part in a series that we've been doing on children and peace. And we at the producers group feel this is very important because all over the world there are children trying to speak out around peace and finding a voice, and they're our future. So it's real important that we listen to them. Our show tonight is called Sharing Circles, A Way to Peacemaking. And we have some very special guests that are going to be on our show. Later on, we're going to have some members of the third grade class at St. Joe's who will be coming on. And we have some videotapes that we're going to share with you. But right now, we'd like to we have some adults in the audience that are going to be our guests right now. And I'd like to introduce to them at this time. Our first guest is Sister Linda Bessam. She's the third grade teacher at St. Joe's here in Somerville. Our second guest is Kathleen Desmaisons, who is a parent. Our third guest is Anne D. Giovanni, and she is the fifth grade teacher at St. Joe's here in Somerville. And our last but not least, our guest is Barbara Moykin, who is a parent of both third and second graders at St. Joe in Somerville. Welcome to all of you. My first question I had is to maybe share with our audience, both at home and here, a little bit about what sharing circles are. And I know you've been working, Sister Linda, quite a few years with this. Could you tell us how it came about and a little bit of background?
Sure. Maybe I can just give a definition first, that a sharing circle is a time when we share our problems, concerns, and feelings. It is a time when we love each other, cooperate, communicate, listen with respect, and try to solve each other's problems. That's our definition. 9 years ago, I was teaching the second grade in St. Augustine's in Lawrence. I had a very large class at the time, and one of the experiences I had to come to grips with was, am I a referee or am I there to teach? And I was beginning to feel that I was more a referee than a teacher. With such a large class, my priority was to have complete control. And I had to look at my style of teaching, and I found out that I really wasn't fostering a climate where decisions could be shared with the kids. I wasn't really providing that room for choices. There was a lot of competition. There was no forum really for the kids to share their concerns. So until I began to look at that question, how was I teaching? Perhaps is it adding to the conflict that the children are experiencing? And doing some reading, thank goodness there were some really good articles that came my way from the American Friends Service Committee that talked about, for the first time I was reading something about how to teach peacemaking skills to children. And as a faculty, one of the mandates that we had with each other at the end of that year was to come up with an educational plan where we could do some kind of peacemaking skills throughout the whole school. And by chance, I had a terrific opportunity to go out to California, and I took a course, Educating Towards Justice Seminar, where I first began to formulate my plan for sharing circles. And I found that things just began to change, that because the children were doing cooperative kinds of things, they were actually learning how to begin to communicate with each other, to affirm each other, something you know, to begin the day with some positive compliments about what happened coming to school. You know, they also had a part in the decision making in the classroom and sharing the responsibility. They also had a way of learning how to share their feelings in a very constructive way rather than keeping the feelings inside until it just kind of was overwhelming for everybody. To teach the children how to disagree without putting each other down. You know, like, so that year, 9 years ago, I was actually learning with my students, and I still am. I still am learning with my students how to do all those kinds of things. And ever since then, you know, it's just been a part of my teaching, you know, that for children to be able to handle conflict skills or to conflict situations, to be able to share their feelings honestly, to look for alternatives rather than the violent, put-down, competitive kind of way that our society says is okay to do, was very difficult. But it's just that I know I will never turn away from teaching the children peacemaking skills. Like that year made such a big difference. And just to let you know some of the impact that it has had. Last year, we did our first video showing the process with third graders, how they came up with their own action plan on trying to change a specific behavior, and that was a noise level, and also an evaluation. So again, it was a whole reflection action. This year, I find the students that I have, their particular gift has been to have a dialogue not only among ourselves about why peacemaking is so important, but to engage in a dialogue with the rest of the school, from kindergarten all the way up through grade 8, and also with the community, with the wider community. Like, this is the first class that actually has had that special gift to do that. And again, the sharing circles has been a way to help the kids engage in that dialogue. And you're going to see it today. I mean,
well, I already have in a lot of ways. Since I've been working
Right.
with these children, it's been wonderful. Right? It's incredible.
Maybe just one more thing. Last year, I went back to St. Augustine's, and the second class that I had with teaching the sharing circle process, I had done a time capsule that they were going to open up when they graduated from the 8th grade. And I went back and I kept a lot of things like slides and some projects that they had done. Before I went back that morning, they asked, can we have a sharing circle? And that, I was just so touched by that. And they just fell right into like sharing what second grade was like and looking back now what it meant to them. And that was the most energizing experience that I've had.
So it lasts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Oh, thanks for sharing that with us. Kathleen, we had a chance to talk on the phone before the show, and you're parents of teenagers, you're a parent of teenagers. And you also had some experience with sharing circles a few years ago with Sister Linda. Could you tell us a little about that?
Well, I think that we may have been the recipients of the idea before it moved up into Sister Linda's consciousness, because Sister Linda had my oldest son in second grade 9 years ago, and so he's now 18. So I live in a house that has 5 teenagers, and needless to say, there is a few incidents of trying to deal with conflict over things like, why hasn't the garbage been taken out, and who's supposed to be doing the dishes, and how come he has more jobs than she does, and how come I don't get to do as much. And what I have found is that the same principle that Sister Linda is describing that she uses in the classroom, we use at home. And what I do is I get all of those kids sitting down together, and we talk. And we talk about what are the problems and what are the issues and what do we need to resolve them. And the kinds of things that happen on a very practical level are when people were so angry about jobs and felt that it was unresolvable and unjust, and that was because I was trying to resolve it. They sat down and resolved it themselves and decided they started with who liked which jobs. And almost all of the jobs were taken by people who really like to do them, so they get done very easily. And then they had essentially a roulette on the jobs that everybody hated. And what has happened is that the experiences that sometimes I have associated with the innocence of children and skilled leadership in the classroom really, in fact, work at home and work with teenagers who generally are off in some other land, not too attentive, fairly involved in themselves, and yet willing to come and sit around the table and really talk with one another and talk with the adults about priorities and needs.
So it's like giving them that space to be able to share their concerns makes them a lot more willing to resolve that in a peaceful way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the most significant thing is that recently, as the older children have started having girlfriends, that what we've noticed is that this circle expands, so that the patterns and the way of dealing with one another is now extending towards another group of people, so that when they get stuck about what does this relationship mean or where are they going, that what I hear from the girlfriends is that they don't know how to deal with these young adult males who are talking to them. They're very confused. They say, why, I don't know what to do. And my sons will come in and say, we need to talk. We need to talk about what this means and where we're going and why we have rules. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, that's great. And
Yeah.
it sounds like, so it's a way that we as parents and other people that work with youth can really take this and take it home with us.
Absolutely.
And it also feels like that's where peace begins, huh, in the world. Right. While we're having some parents' reaction, I thought I might ask you, Barbara, too, how do you resolve conflict at home? I know you have a second and third grader. What methods do you find helpful?
Well, it's been very difficult, and I'm sure it always will be really difficult. I feel as a parent I've been well prepared by my culture to deal with the physical aspects of child rearing, but not really very well prepared in dealing with that type of thing. And I think I tend to be impatient and not so good at working through that kind of thing myself. And I think the most helpful thing I've found and seen some results with is I think I try to give them opportunities to share, whether it's sharing the space or sharing things or sharing feelings. They have to share a lot. I mean, they have to share a room and that kind of thing. And I don't think that's really typical. I think this culture is very individualistic, and I think that that has helped. It shows in their relationship, I think.
Before we're going to go to a tape in a few minutes, but I want to ask you, Anne, about you as a teacher at St. Joe's in the 5th grade. How did you first learn about sharing circles, and what was your impression?
Well, Sister Linda's workshop was just wonderful. She opened it up to the whole school and to the community, and it really gave me an awareness of the role that a teacher plays, and that learning to resolve conflict in a creative way is a process, and it's a skill, and it's a learned skill, just like reading or math, and it's something that takes years, and we build and we build. And just that awareness is a comfort in itself, without feeling like, oh, I'm the only one that has problems in the classroom, or I'm the only one that has problems at home. We all have it, and we're all dealing with it, and together, I think we can really make a difference.
Thank you. We have a lot on this show that we're going to be sharing with you, and people are going to have a chance to see, participate as an audience with the sharing circle, and we're going to be doing that later on in the show. Right now, we're going to show a tape in just a minute. The producers group has had a rare opportunity to, over the past 3 weeks, work with very directly with the children in the 3rd grade at St. Joe's, and they have been excellent. In fact, you might say they're sort of co-producers of this show, because it's been their questions and their concerns and their influence on how the show has actually come about. And I just really wanted to say to them again, thanks a lot. And so we're going to be coming to that later on in the show. And also we'll have a time that we'll have a studio interaction. There is a live a real live studio here, audience, excuse me, studio audience. And they're over there clapping now. And, all right. And later on in the show, we're going to have a chance to talk to them, and they can ask the children questions, and we also will be taking phone calls in. So we'll be announcing that later on. Right now, we have a wonderful tape that we want to show you. It's called The Duck and the Gun, and it's a play, and I think Sister Linda could probably better tell you real quickly what it's about.
The Duck and the Gun is a special play that reflects a strong commitment to life, and a duck is going to be a peacemaker in this play, unknowingly makes its nest in a cannon and causes a whole change of events so that in the end there is no war between this general and a town. This was part of our activities for Education Towards Justice Week that we had at St. Joseph's School, and we shared this with the whole school as well.
Thank you. Let's go to the tape.
The Duck and the Gun by Joy Cowley. For days the general and his army had been marching. Now they're all around the town and ready for the war. The general called his gunner. Is the gun in place? Yes, sir. It is aimed at the town. Good. Load it. When I give you the order, fire the gun. Very well, sir. The gunner went away, but a little while later he came back. Please, sir, we can't fire that gun. No. Why not? Because we cannot load it, sir. Why can't you load it? Please, sir, there's a duck in our gun. A duck in our gun! He jumped up from his chair. It has made a nest in there, sir. How dare it! It must go at once. I've tried, sir, but the duck won't come out. I think it is sitting on some eggs. Then I'll do something about it myself. I'll show that duck it can't stop an army. The general and the gunner went out to where the duck had been set, aimed at the town. You mean the duck's right in there? Yes, I put my hand in but couldn't reach it. The general looked down the gun and saw two small eyes looking back at him. Here, Dilly. Nice, Dilly. But the duck didn't move. Please, sir, could you put some food at the end of the gun? If the duck is hungry, it'll come out and eat. A very good idea. Give me some bread at once. Bits of fresh bread in the end of the gun, but still, the duck would not come out. The general stamped up and down. You leave me a duck and upset my plan! There's something you can do, sir. You can fire the gun with the duck inside. No. We'll think of something else. I know, we'll borrow a gun. The general picked up a white flag and marched into the town. To the town guards, he said, "Take me to the Prime Minister." Yes, sir. You stay here. The guards led him through the streets to the Prime Minister's. The general knocked on the door, and at once it was opened by the Prime Minister's daughter. Good afternoon. Do you know who I am? Oh, yes, I've seen your pictures in the newspaper. Won't you come in? She turned away and called, "Father, the general's here to see you." How do you do? Not very well. He shakes his head. Then he told the Prime Minister about the duck and the gun. There's a duck in her gun. You know what I mean? There's a duck in her gun. I see. And you can't really fire the gun with a duck inside.
What are you going to do about it?
That's why I came to see you. I was wondering if we could borrow a gun.
Oh, no.
I can't let you use my gun. Plus, we only have one gun. Could we share? You could fire at us, and we could take the gun and fire at you. No. You can't do that. Besides, it's far too heavy to move. For a while, the general looked unhappy.
Well, it looks.
Well, it looks as though you'll have to put the war off for 3 weeks. By that time, the eggs will have hatched, and you will have your gun back. A very good idea. When the General's army heard the news, they were quite pleased. They would have 3 weeks off. And in fact, they were so pleased that they put food down the gun whenever the General wasn't But after 1 week, the General had another problem. Picked up his white flag and went to see the Prime Minister again. Hi.
How are you?
How are you? Not very well. The fact is, I'm running out of money. In my army, I've done nothing for a whole week, and they want me to pay them for it. That is a problem.
I don't suppose.
I don't suppose you'd let me borrow some money. No, I cannot pay people for doing nothing, but I can pay them if they work for me. See our town, it needs painting. In 2 weeks, your men could paint this whole town. What a great idea. I'll tell my men at once. This time the army was not so pleased, but when the General said he could no longer pay them, they agreed to work in the town. So early next morning, they put on old clothing and left the camp. As soon as the last one had gone, the General went out to look at the gun. The duck was still there, sitting on her nest and quacking to herself. Quack, quack. The General looked over his shoulder to make sure that he was alone. He took some cake from his pocket, put it quickly down the gun, and then went back to his tent. Every day the army went to work in the town. It was very quiet at camp. Sometimes the General would look at the town through his glasses and watch the house change colors. Sometimes he visits the Prime Minister and his daughter and had tea in their garden. Sometimes he would just walk as far as the gun with a pocket full of bread. Near the end of the 3rd week, the eggs hatched. The General went by the gun and heard not only quack, quack, but also tiny beep, 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 beep. The General rang the alarm bell as loudly as he could. At once, the soldiers put down their paints and brushes and ran back to the camp. Attention! The duck eggs have hatched. Yes, sir. He looked inside the gun. Here, Dilly, Dilly. 3 cheers. 3 cheers for the duck! Hooray! 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 Come on, throw your hands up. You didn't give me a chance to say. Oh, Lord. Here, Dilly, Dilly, nice Dilly. Out popped a little head. It was the first duckling. Very carefully, the General placed it on the ground. Then another duckling came out. And another, until 8 of them were waddling around the General's feet. Last out was the mother duck. She looked at everyone and quacked loudly. Then she flew down beside her ducklings. She marched them across the grass. Three cheers for the duck! Throwing their hats in the air. Hooray! The Now we can use our gun again. At last we can have a war. The soldiers stopped cheering. They became very quiet. They stood with their hats in their hands and looked down at the ground. Sir, we can't fire at that town. Just think what it would do to the fresh paint.
Yes, we worked 2 weeks on those houses.
The general nodded. It did seem silly to blow up freshly painted houses. Besides, he had become rather fond of the Prime Minister's daughter. What will we do then? You couldn't put the war off for good, could you, sir? After we have finished painting the houses, we can all go home. All right, I'll go tell the Prime Minister. So that was the end of the war. The soldiers finished painting the houses. It's time to go to the wedding. It was a big wedding with flowers and bells and a cake that had a white sugar gun on top. Of course, the duck came. She and her 8 ducklings were there to march behind the army band. The end.
Welcome back to Dead Air Live. As you'll see in just a minute, we have a lot of new guests on our set. And in fact, there's 12, I believe, young people here from the 3rd grade class at St. Joe's. And Sister Linda and I are here too, and a part of the sharing circle. And even though the sharing circle looks a little different than normal because we're not completely closed off, because we wanted to let the studio audience get a chance to see us, but we're in a sharing circle. Sister Linda, maybe you'd like to, start off a sharing circle, and I'd like to be a part 2 if I can, if no one minds. Is that okay? Can I be a part 2? Okay, great. So.
Okay, one of the many things that we've been thinking about doing our sharing circles. We've had many opportunities during the year to share our feelings about certain things that are happening in our lives. We've begun to learn how to look at our own problems and how to find out, well, we can change them. We don't have to constantly be acting the same way. We don't have to constantly be putting each other down. We don't have to choose to have fights all the time. We can work together. Maybe for our first sharing circle, we could think back on all those times we had a sharing circle, why they were really good for us, how they helped us to grow as a 3rd grade family, because we do share life together, and how it helped us not to run away from our problems, but to talk about them and to find out that we can do something to change and to bring peace right where we are. So, our first question, how have sharing circles helped us? Michael Powers, would you like to be the starter?
If we have a problem out at recess, we, a big one, like if we make a sharing circle and we try to talk it out.
Michael?
We share our stories. We share our stories about our families and things that happen to us.
Wanda?
We tell questions to each other, and we solve each other's problems.
Christina?
I like sharing circles because we learn and we listen and we learn about peace. We made a special tape for Manuel from Guatemala.
And what do we have on that tape, just to help you say that a little bit more? What did we put on that tape, and why was that so important?
Our wishes.
For him. Right. Thank you. Caleb?
Well, I think sharing circles have helped us cooperate.
Absolutely.
I like sharing circles because when someone gets into a fight, then we can share our problems and we can solve the stuff about the fight.
What I've learned from sharing circles with you all is how to listen and how people can listen to one another a lot better and learn from one another by doing that.
Kyle?
We share our love and our wood.
Excellent.
We talk about things that happened. So I had recess out lunch. Pass. If we're running in a classroom and we're not supposed to, in so many trips, then we can have a sharing circle and solve their problems.
Okay. Anyone who said pass, who remembers something? Gary?
Skip.
Well, when you remember, you can let us know. My turn. One of the things that you see behind me, creating a cooperative world of the future, that whole process of thinking who they want to be 20 years from now, thinking about what particular job they were going to do, somehow was going to make a better world. We had a sharing circle about that. And then the next sharing circle was, is there anybody in this group that I can work with 20 years from now to make a better world? And as a result, you see teams of people, whether it's the team, I'm looking right here, Michelle, who's working in a factory and trying to help make the factory a safer place, Pierre, who drops off people as a taxi cab driver, and who also works with Chris, who wants to be a priest, to make the homeless, to be able to take them to the shelter called Rosie's Place. But all of that was done through a sharing circle, but with the whole emphasis of envisioning a peaceful world, but a world where we work together, not separate, but really work together.
Was there another question that you wanted to go around and talk about?
Right, I think that our next question was going to be, what can kids do to be peacemakers? Now, I know we did the duck and the gun, where we talked about how we feel about peace and how we feel about war, how we feel about all forms of life. And then one of the questions there, we asked, well, what can kids do? What can we learn from that play to be a peacemaker right where we are? What can kids do to begin to bring peace right where they are? That's our next question. Who would like to be the starter for that? How about somebody on this side? Abigail, and we'll go on to Michelle.
Well, not having fighting wars with fists and name calling, things like that.
Michelle?
Like if a war starts, and somebody could stop it, so they could talk it out.
Kyle? Okay. Claudia, what do you think kids can do?
To be peacemakers. I know that I learned from you all a lot in the past couple of weeks, and one thing I learned was how well you ask questions, and I was really touched by learning to ask questions. And I think children can be peacemakers by asking adults in their world questions, and each other questions about how we can do things better, and learning more about people, which I think helps us be more peaceful.
Pia?
Pass.
Caleb?
Well, the kids can help stop like fights that other people get into, like in our school. If like some other third graders get in a fight, some other, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's the teacher or kids, and you can just try to stop the fight. And I tried to stop one, and I hurt my eye today, but it was worth it.
That's great. And that's the risk we take, right? To be peacemakers, it is, but it is always worth it. And I'm glad you did that, Kaylee. Thank you. Joey?
Pass.
Christina? How do you think kids can be peacemakers?
Like when you're out at recess and people make you mad and they start pushing, don't start fighting back, try to talk it out.
Maybe find out.
Yeah,
if it was
see
by
why,
accident.
was by accident or they did it on purpose.
Find out why.
And ask them why they did it. Not to call people names, and if somebody does call you a name, ask them why they called you it. Instead of fighting, you can just talk it out instead of hitting people. To share our snack and our lunch.
Sharing things are very
Yeah.
important. I feel kids can really be peacemakers. Pretty much what Clea was saying. We have written a couple of letters, one to the new Bishop Law and also to Mayor Flynn, and we have also asked the two of them to look at the concerns of homelessness and racism and to try to find out ways that people can work together to solve those kinds of problems. So continuing our questions with the wider community. But first, finding ways and really believing that we can solve our own problems. We don't have to keep punching them out. We can talk to each other, share our feelings, and find really good ways of being peacemakers right where we are.
You can make peace with your enemies if you have a fight with them.
Okay. Sometimes it means saying, I'm sorry. Absolutely. Gary?
Like if somebody gets in a fight, you try to stop them. If they don't want to stop it, you don't want to get in the middle of it. You call the teacher and they'll make that. Then they'll talk it over.
Maybe the teacher can help at that point. Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody who said pass that would like to add to anything now? Is that Pia? Was your hand up? Okay.
Like when we get in fourth grade and the people who are in third grade get into a fight, we can try to stop their fight and call the teacher, and maybe they can solve the problem.
Joey, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like trying to help others would make peace, like helping people if they fall down or get hurt. It will help them into the school if they get a big cut out in the schoolyard.
Good, yeah. And Caleb?
I just want to say something.
Sure.
Well, you can, but don't really try you can try, but I wouldn't push it too far with older people trying to stop their fights if they get in a big fight.
Yeah.
I try. If you like your body.
Thank you all for sharing with the audience and sharing with me again, a sharing circle. We have another special tape that is going to be being shown to you in the home audience and also in our studio audience right away. It's a tape that we call On the Streets. The Dead Air Live show tries always to include people that are not actually on our show, but what people are feeling about a certain topic. And this was a very special day because the third graders at St. Joe went out with us on the street, and they chose the questions, and they took the microphone, and by the way, did an excellent job technically. They were wonderful. And they went out to Union Square and asked people questions, very many different questions, and I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'm going to let you see it. So the tape is ready, and we come back, we'll have a chance to talk about it real quick, but let's go to the tape.
We are third grade students of St. Joseph School. We're doing a special peace education project. We are asking questions about peace in our world.
Why is peace important to you?
Peace is very important for me. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why I do the kinds of things I do at St. Joseph's is to teach children when they're little what peace is and how we can all work towards being a peacemaker, because I feel no matter how little you are, you can learn about peace. And Michael, what you're doing right now, talking to people and asking them questions, I'm sure they're not going to forget them, and they'll probably go home and continue to think about these questions about peace and why it's so important to little children.
What does peace mean to you?
This would mean the absence of violence, people living in harmony with each other, settling differences without using violence to do it.
How do fights start among us?
I think people don't understand each other, so fights and arguments start.
How can we solve them peacefully?
How can we solve them peacefully? Probably by trying to understand other people and how they think and what they feel.
Why do you think peace is important?
Well, it's important to me because I think you and all the other little kids in the world ought to have a chance to grow up.
How do you feel about war? Why do you think wars start?
What do I think about wars? I think they're bad.
How do you think they start?
Well, they start when people get greedy and they want to get things from other people and they don't want to leave them alone, and so they try and take it. That's how wars start.
What does peace mean to you?
Well, peace means to me where everyone is happy and everyone likes and respects each other, all right? And all little boys and girls respect their adults as it used to be years ago. It's a whole different world today, all right? As long as one loves everyone and respects each other, then there should be peace in the world.
How do you bring peace right where you are, in your neighborhood, home, workplace, or city?
First of all, I think the most important thing is brotherly love. No race, no discrimination. That's the beginning of peace. Work, home, or in the city. That's the most important thing of all, son. That's